Hello, everyone. Oh, it seems like it's working better now. My goodness, I'm so happy. This morning was a little crazy, but we got through it. Welcome, everyone, to the Zeta Perspective right here on Rebellious Ufology. I'm so happy to welcome you to today's show on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. If you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, I also have a morning show right here on Rebellious Ufology that I'd love for you to go see. Every morning at 8 a.m. Eastern, I give you the UFO podcast daily lineup where I've been working with other podcasters to get their info so I can tell you who's on that day, what time they'll be on, and what they'll be talking about. And it's always a good schedule. Always. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it works well for everybody today. YouTube, hopefully you got your stuff figured out. And if you like what you see here today, consider joining the rebellion by hitting that subscribe button. And don't forget to ring the bell to get notifications on all of our videos. You can also follow me on Twitter at Rebellious UFO and Instagram at Rebellious Ufology. So on this show, the Zeta Perspective, we'll be talking about all things with regards to experiencers. So whether you consider yourself an experiencer, a contactee, or an abductee, or even if you're just curious as to what it's all about, this is the place for you. We have Paul Hamden and Cyan joining us. They're both lifelong experiencers and have weekly, if not daily, ongoing contact with the Zetas. According to their website, The Zeta Connection, to which there's a link in the description down below, they state, the Zetas are aware that they are misunderstood and have been misrepresented over the years. They'd encourage a person to take the time to reevaluate what they think they know and become acquainted with the information they have given and proven themselves. And that's exactly what we're here to do in this show, look at the information and examine it from all perspectives to see if we can come to understand it better. So this will be a weekly call-in show so that you can speak with Paul and Cyan directly if you'd like, and they will be with me every week to either answer questions or you can give their perspective on what the Zetas might say or think about something. For those of you that don't want to be on camera, that's totally fine. You can just join in on audio, or if you prefer, you can always ask your questions in the chat. And just a reminder before we start, if you do ask a question in the chat, please type it in all caps so that I can see it easier. Also, if you know someone who might enjoy this conversation and who wouldn't, it's going to be an amazing conversation. Please feel free to share the love, share the show so they too can join us. And if you're so inclined and would like to, please the YouTube gods, give the show a like and leave a comment down below. All right, everyone. With that, we are ready to bring Paul and Cyan on. So let me get them on here for you and we will get started. Hello, Paul and Cyan. Welcome back. Nice to see you.
G'day.
You look more well rested this time. Hopefully you've adjusted to the time change.
Yeah, sort of, yeah. No, we're all right.
Yeah. It's a big time change. It's quite a bit. It's what, 7 hours different? Or 8 hours tonight?
Yeah, it's like the previous day or something.
That's crazy. That is so crazy. Well, we have a few people in here. Let's see. Hi, Walt. How are you? Hello, Enzo. Hi, David Hurley. How are you doing? Hi, Marilena. Nice to see you. Good evening. It was good afternoon this morning, but good evening. Hello, my flock is everywhere. So nice to see you as well. And hello, KMN 847. I can talk today. How are you? I'm sure we're going to have other people joining us, but so wonderful to have you guys all here with us. So today, I want to talk about something in particular.
Okay.
I'm curious. You guys have mentioned this before, but I don't think we've ever really kind of delved into it. Let's talk synthetic quantum environments. What exactly is a synthetic quantum environment?
Right. So basically, if you could think, if we just put it into plain terms, it's like a holographic environment that you would see. I can only say it would be like something on, say, Star Trek, or whatever, where you move into that space, but you can't tell that you're in it because it's so much like the copy of something. So, say your room that you're in there, they could take a copy of that room and put it into an SQE, and then take a copy of you and put that into an SQE as well, and then watch you interact in your environment. And they can also place stimulus inside that environment as well. And so the SQEs are used to study humans and also to give an experience that the person may want to have. i.e., I believe that some of the jump room technology that was used for the Mars project was based around synthetic quantum environments as well. Yeah, so there's a lot to it. I mean, it's really hard to just go, oh, and what is it? You know, it's this and it does that. You know, it's
So it's similar to I'm trying to remember what it was called on Star Trek. I think it was the holodeck, where basically they would like program it like, I want to be on this planet, like doing this, and they'd program it and walk in and it would look like they're there.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
So that's one thing that they can do with it. But the other thing is that they can create a construct, and the construct, you know, we've talked about screen memory technologies A, B, C, and D. But there's an E version, which is called the construct. And the construct is based around the synthetic quantum environment technology, where you're actually in a room and they trigger events in the room, and they bring, I'm not going to say actors, but they bring in beings that will portray a certain role. And those beings won't know that they're actually falling into what's classed as a honeypot. Okay, so a honeypot is a hacker's term, right? It's like a back-end server that's used to draw people in to see where all the problems are. So they'll create a construct, the Zetas will, and they'll utilize the construct that can't be identified by another race, and the other race will just step straight into it. And then what they'll be able to do is to watch and study the other race as well, not just humans.
Okay, interesting. That's interesting. So then, so they can go on, or they can go in and join you as well. So I'm assuming the person, while they're in this, isn't aware for the most part that they're in this. Is that the case?
You are definitely not aware that you're in a construct. And so if you're in a construct, you may see distortions and ripples. You can also be in, so let's say you're being contacted or abducted. You could be in a synthetic quantum environment and think that you're on a table and see all this like a craft around you, and you'll see all the technology and all the rest of it. But all it really is like a movie theater. It's actually not happening. And they're looking at your responses. So I'm not saying that happens to everybody. It doesn't. But there is abduction, but there's also the synthetic quantum environment technology that's used to simulate and train them, as well as watch your responses in your environment. Such as they could simulate a MyLab environment for you.
Yeah.
And you would not know the difference.
Interesting. Okay. Enzo has a question.
Okay, sorry, go for it. No, it's fine.
Is the construct an actual physical place, or is it all a hallucination?
Enzo, that's a really good question. I think the real question is, what is the physical? If we think about the molecular structure of anything, it's basically a lot of space, and it's held together via consciousness. And so when we look at technologies that exist, such as even radio waves, the only way that you know that a radio wave exists is because you've got a device that can funnel the radio wave into a sound. You could say, does a radio wave exist? Yes, it does, but you can't see it. You can only see it once it's actually, or hear it, once it's actually moved through a technology. So the SQEs are a technology, and it's an interesting technology. It's actually a physical technology, but also it's driven by consciousness.
I'm thinking about that, those healings that happened down at Wallacea.
Tell them about that. There you go.
When we do workshops or sittings, when we're actually physically there, not online, quite often, if the energy is right in the place that we're working in, they will invite people for healing. So we don't ever say we're doing healings. We have to be we have to wait to be told that, yes, the energy is right to do it and that the Zetas invite people in. Well, on this particular occasion, the energy was obviously good. And they said they wanted 2 people to come in at a time for healings. And so we put the offer out there and people did turn up for that. And so we had 2 healing couches. 2 people came in, they lay down. Paul was one end of the room. I was the other end of the room. We both went into a trance state to facilitate what was going on. And then the fun began because we were literally seeing with our eyes open and closed both at the same time, open then shut. The only way you can describe it is technology coming through the ceiling, instrumentation coming down, beings walking around. You think you were going bonkers, except that everyone in the room could see it. And the healings were taking place. They were successful and were and happened. So there's so many different things that they use these environments for.
Well, you've seen them walking through the environment.
Those we had a sitting, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and they changed the entire room we were in, and it enabled the beings to actually seemingly just walk through the wall and walk through the room, like right in front of me, pass between us, no more than a meter away. And it wasn't just, there's a slight distortion or whatever. It's that's a Zeta being, like walking in front of me, and it was about that speed as well. It wasn't like they normally move. They normally move so far. You just get a flash glimpse
sauntered by,
they literally sauntered by, enabling me to see them quite clearly, and it was amazing.
Wow, that's incredible. So now, when they change your environment like that, are they? So this is, I guess, where it gets kind of complicated, right? Because if our reality is created by consciousness, are they then actually changing our physical environment, or are they changing our perception of our physical environment?
Well, I know that quite often spirits change our perception of our environment so that we can believe that we're seeing certain things. That they definitely could, if they wanted to, they could change your perception so that you could think you're seeing something. But the difference is that if you have a look in the primer of the Zeta race, the scientist William Trinity, he's put pictures in of he had some sort of ketosis or something on his nose, and the Zetas said to him, "Oh, that'll just fall off in 7 days," after they'd worked on it. So he had a physical response to what they were doing. It's not just something that's a perception. And that's with the others as well, like with the etheric ear that was created by them. That's also a fully working, technological device as well. So these things aren't just perception; they're actually working in the physical as well.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So what other purpose would they have for a quantum synthetic environment other than teaching? Like, why would they, let's say, okay, like you mentioned the Mars jumps. Now, did the people using them, one, know that it was let's call it an SQE, because that's a lot easier. I can understand why you write it now. Or were they unaware? And if they were unaware, why I'm assuming it was the Zetas that created them, but if not, whomever, why would they have created it and let the humans think that they were actually jumping?
There's nothing as real as a real experience. And if you can give somebody an experience where they don't have to place themselves in any real physical danger, but they can have the full experience in consciousness, then that is a really good way to train somebody. I know that there was one of the persons that did the jump believed that their arm had been torn off.
Oh, wow.
And when, of course, it was over and they were back, they looked down and their arm was still attached. So that shows me that they were in full belief that they were actually inside that environment when it took, when the damage to their arm took place.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Now, can you use something like that as, say, a portal to go from one place to another?
No.
No. Okay.
No, because gateways are different than SQEs. So gateways, I know this sounds a bit corny, but they have to be dialed into. That's the first thing. So generally, you can dial into a gateway using crystals, but you need to know. Basically, it's not what the address is. So, with remote viewing, you might have an address or a target.
Mm-hmm.
What you need to do is you need to set the intention to create the gateway, and then using the crystals as a methodology for holding the specific energy of the gateway, you can then dial into it that way. So they're totally different processes. The SQEs are used as a training environment. I'll give you another example. They may say you want to observe something. We know through quantum physics that by observing something, that the act of observation changes something. Okay. So what they would do would be to take a copy of the timeline and place that into an SQE and then observe all aspects of now. And it wouldn't matter what they had done because it had not affected the original timeline.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So now how do they place an aspect of a timeline in an SQE?
You know what? I got no idea.
Well, there you go. Honest answer. Honest
I
answer.
mean, I've seen him and I've seen him do it, but some of the technology that they've got just defies any type of understanding. That's why I continually sort of chuckle when people go, "Oh, extraterrestrials are here to take over the planet." You know what? If they wanted it, they'd have it. There's no way you could stop them.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. Gigi has a question. Paul, do they touch you too? Just wondering.
Yeah. So 2 examples. One, when the craft landed the second time, and I had my friends with me in New South Wales, they walked around and they put their hands on everybody's shoulders, mine included. So they physically were heard walking around. The ground was granular. It was very, gritty sand. So hands on shoulders, you could hear them as well. You could see them as well if your eyes were open. The second time was in an SQE. A person had just had a shoulder operation and they were sitting inside the room with a group of people. And a Zeta materialized and walked across to the person and put their finger into the person's shoulder, and the person yelled out. They were in a lot of pain. And when the person sort of the next day or the second day went back to the doctors, the doctor reported after scanning them that it seemed that the shoulder was about 3 weeks in front of where the healing process was supposed to have been. And it did end up within a couple of weeks, it was all totally healed. And it was major shoulder surgery as well. So they can touch people. But we also have spirit people that walk around in the proper environment and touch people as well.
Yeah.
And they can be seen walking around the room.
Wow. That's amazing. Enzo had another question. Are SQEs outside of our normal space-time? Would spending time in one account for the missing time phenomena? Oh, that's a good question.
No, because the person that's in there, say it was me, would be a copy of myself.
Oh.
Yeah. And so because it's the copy, then when they compact the SQE, the original is not affected. Remember, with all things SQE, they're always copies of something.
Okay. Yeah. So even if you go in and experience it, it's still a copy of yourself, correct?
One caveat to that, if a human hybrid creates a synthetic quantum environment, and they've had the training to do that, then they're inside the SQE as themselves, not as a copy, because they're the ones that created it. So the SQE technology is actually driven by and constructed by consciousness, but the amplification process of the SQE is done by technology. And the reason I know that is because I was creating an SQE, and as I looked up, I saw a construction, or like a matrix being built, like a shell around the whole room. And once the shell was in place, it was like steel rails, or it wasn't really steel rails, but just for description. And once the railing or the structure was, the skeletal structure was in place, then the embedded imagery was placed into that.
Wow. So now, you said you were creating one. How do you create one?
Yeah, that's what I said before about being trained to create one. So it's more about, remember we put some images up. I was showing you the one with the structure.
Yeah.
That's training that you're given to learn how to operate specific technologies. Also, how to utilize your own abilities to create things. And, we all talk about the aspect of creation, how we are, we can create things, through intention and all the rest of it. Yeah, I mean, depending, what training you've had depends on what you can create.
Interesting. So is it through the use of their technology, or is it all consciousness driven?
Well, you need to have the intentions, like, you've got a car in your driveway, a boat in your driveway, and a few other things. If your intention is to drive the car, you don't get into the boat. So, you've got to set the correct intention, but then you've got to know how to access that. And this is the thing, it's like disclosure. There's a million ideas about what disclosure should be, but from an extraterrestrial perspective, they have their own, they're the ones that are disclosing. They know what they want as disclosure. They're not interested in what other, should be a disclosure type from the other side of the fence. And that's the same thing with using technology, is that you either learn their ways of using technology, or you're just not shown how to do that. It's the same as, if they're trying to teach someone to, and this is a bit of a contentious area, fly a craft. Well, what is the purpose of that, and why would they really do that if that's even happening anyway? But you would have to learn how to control their vehicles, not just make up anything as you go along.
Right. So is there any other purpose other than giving us an experience safely, that they would create a synthetic quantum environment for us?
Yeah. It's not just for humans. This is the thing. That's just one aspect. So SQEs are used to examine things, as a scientist would examine an ecosystem. That you would take a sample of the ecosystem and try not to disturb the rest of the process. But there is another thing that SQEs are used for. It's used to hold the collective consciousness of the human race. And so, and this is probably going to sound like a bit of a far out concept, but anyway, here we go. Around the outer edges of the planet, there's a whole lot of spheres, and these spheres are populated by beings, and those beings focus continually on the collective consciousness of the human race. Now, those beings themselves are many races, many different races, and what they're trying to do is hold what's taking place on planet here in consciousness, and trying to increase that frequency. Some people would class that as the ascension process. No race wants to see this civilization disappear. Okay, they've looked at the timeline through the SQE. They've seen what's taking place at the moment, and they've started years ago, 70 years ago. They started. I won't call it the hybridization process because that's something completely different. But they started the hybrid process of implementing consciousness into the substrate of the human collective consciousness. So the SQEs are used as well as that. There's supposedly around 153 in operation at any point in time off planet.
Oh, wow. Just around our planet?
Yeah, just around our planet. But, it's like anything. It's if you're not using them or you don't need them, then the technology just shuts them down, I guess.
Interesting. So let's talk about what you kind of just mentioned, which is, you said it's not the hybridization program, but they're entering the hybrid. Did you say the hybrid consciousness into the collective consciousness of basically Earth, humans on Earth? What is the difference with that?
Well, Cyan, you know all about
that. Yeah, the Zetas said that about 70 years ago, several generations ago, they, them as well as other races, had a conjoined effort to try and raise the consciousness of humanity, lift it all up a little bit. And they can't interfere from the outside. That's against free will. So from the inside, though, they can help. And so with the permission of the spirit people, which we all are, we're all from spirit realm, they agreed that with a certain people, they would join in consciousness and form a hybrid consciousness, ET and spirit people. So they said a few years ago that amounts to about 30% of the population. And that's Zeta and other races all together in that 30%.
Okay. Interesting. And then is the hybridization program the actual creation of human ET, whichever race that is, hybrids? Is that what the difference is?
Sorry, Lynn, could you ask that question again?
Sure. So the hybridization program is the difference between that and what you were just talking about kind of implanting the hybrid consciousness into the human consciousness. Is there a difference between that and the hybridization program, the physical hybridization program, like the creation of a physical being that is part ET, part human?
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole thing. I don't actually believe in the hybridization program. As I've said, and I mean, look, everyone can disagree, that's fine. But when you're on craft, here we go, roll cameras, off you go. The person's abducted, they're up on craft. They walk through, they see the cylinder with the half human, half genetically modified something. Two nurses come, here's a baby for you to hold, cut, and all this sorts of thing, and you shove back in your bed. To me, it's like, well, that's probably not good enough. If that's what's really going on, then that sounds a bit too simplistic to me. Why are all these people seeing the same thing all the time? Or is this just really like a Class B screen memory? You're just being shown what they know you'll accept or what your belief structure is. But in the background, something else is going on. Now, with the hybridization process, we know that the abductors, or the grey abductors, that one race, that they would try to combine specific DNA from humans and other races. But we have to understand that to actually create something, it needs a spirit. And so spirits enliven a physical form. When your spirit leaves your body, or your higher self, whatever you want to call it, your soul, the physical body dematerializes. And so what the abductors haven't worked out is how to coerce the spirit people into allowing them to have a symbiotic relationship with them to create these genetically modified hybrids for the hybridization process. There's a big difference between that and actually being genetically modified as a human being. Okay, that's totally different, because if people were actually part of a hybridization process, you would see that they would then have specific alterations to their physical characteristics. Whereas, when was the last time you saw somebody with totally black eyes? Unless they had, surgery or tattoos to make that happen. So, I mean, it's all right to talk about all this stuff, but it's good to also see the evidence. And I've not seen any, but if other people have, that's fine. That's good.
Yeah. So I guess my question would be, ultimately, would there be a huge difference between if they were creating these genetically altered hybrids, as you said, they would need to have the ET consciousness and the human consciousness to kind of combine. What would be the difference between that, other than their outward appearance, and what you were talking about, which is where you do have the spirit person and the ET consciousness combining? I mean, is it just an outward shell that would be the only difference?
If they were genetic hybrids, purely biological hybrids. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So why do you think, to me though, that seems like, I mean, maybe it's a little more acceptable now, but I mean, we have people that we know who have gone through very physical symptoms of hybridization, like the hybridization program, like these women who have gone through very physical symptoms. So why would that be occurring if there is no physically, like, genetic?
Can you give me an example of a person that's been through a hybridization program?
What symptoms?
Or are you talking about them taking material from people and creating off-world beings?
Well, I'm talking about like women who they get pregnant. They have, symptoms of being pregnant. Then, the fetus is removed. Like, they have all of these very physical symptoms.
Yeah,
so wouldn't that account for a hybridization program?
Yeah, but that's an off-world one. That's off planet.
Or a misunderstood process.
Yeah, or a misunderstood process. But yeah, there's definitely. I mean, let's put this out on the table here.
Yeah.
What is the problem with them creating copies of humans and placing them off planet? When you look at I'm just because I'm saying, if the planets ever got destroyed for whatever reason, the human race or the civilization would want to continue on. If those beings that have been taken and placed off planet are living in a civilization, which we know they are, probably in many places, then of course that could be classed as a hybridization process, but that's off planet, not on planet.
Okay, I see where the confusion was coming in. So basically, you're saying, yes, that type of a program does exist. However, those children are living off planet. They're not living here on Earth.
Yeah, that's
Am I understanding that correctly? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And of course, those children would also show characteristics of being part of that program as well. They'd have the physical characteristics of that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you think any hybrid that's here on Earth is more consciousness related, as opposed to just genetically being a hybrid? Is that right?
From a human aspect alone, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So,
yes. Explain a little.
I'm being very careful what I'm saying here. So we've got people that are born that are hybrids, and so they're extraterrestrial, they're spirit, they've got a symbiotic relationship, and they're hybrids. About 30% of the planet.
Yes.
But we've also got other beings that are living on planet that look exactly like humans.
Yeah.
But they're not part of any hybridization process. They're actually fully their own race, but they just look like they're human. That's the difference. And so that'd be like me saying to you, Lynn, I'm going to put you on another planet now. I may alter you a little bit physically, but you're going to look like the inhabitants. You'd be like, yeah, okay, as long as I'm trained and can fit in, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. And
so a lot of beings do live on planet here with humans as well.
Okay. Gotcha. I got what you're saying now. So that's interesting. So, talking with you guys is the first time I've ever really heard about the concept of a hybrid being consciousness related as opposed to genetic, which I think is fascinating. So does that mean that, because I've always kind of been curious about I do believe in reincarnation. I believe we live multiple lives. I don't believe the timeline is linear, but I do believe, because what would be the purpose of only living one life? How much could we honestly learn in that time frame? But I always kind of thought, well, maybe people live everywhere in their different lifetimes. So can a spirit in that sense be considered from one place or another? I mean, if we're all living multiple lifetimes on multiple planets, unless you don't agree with that would explain it maybe. But how can it be from one place? You know what I'm trying to say?
That's a big question.
It is.
And there's a lot of facets to it as well. So, spirit people, they incarnate into the physical form. And quite often when spirit people are talking through a medium, a trance medium, we're able to talk to them and ask them questions. But they're not able to accurately talk about their extraterrestrial life. They're able to talk about their human life. I think the misnomer is that the spirit realm actually encompasses the whole universe. If we understand that each race holds their own specific process for incarnation and life and death, that makes much more sense than trying to make one idea fit everything. That spirit people come here, they incarnate as humans, they also then leave spirit realm and then go off and become extraterrestrials. The only time I've heard about spirit realm being a gateway to another race is when at the top of, if we used sort of dimensional aspects, at the top of the frequency of spirit realm is a nexus, and the nexus is a gateway. And that's where all the celestial and the interdimensionals enter in and out of spirit realm. It's possible for a spirit person at that point to move into a different form, a different race, a different set of beings. How that would take place is only known to those beings. I don't believe that humans have a lot of the answers to these sorts of questions. I think the interdimensional stuff is very, very difficult to evidence. I mean, if an extraterrestrial walks through your house, they walk through your house.
Right.
But if a non-corporeal or non-human entity that's not non-matter is sort of communicating with you, then you've got to ask yourself, well, how do I evidence that? How do I fully understand what they understand in regards to their existence? What social and political structures, if at all, do they have as not as non-corporeal entities? I think that there's a lot of belief structures that have been built by humanity. A lot of in the past, what do they call that? When humans build all the different sort of belief systems and stuff.
Call it just that.
Just call it that.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. All right. So have the Zetas ever talked to you about what happens to them when they pass away? What we would refer to.
So they actually don't even have a spirit realm. They don't need one. So what they do is they, when they come towards the end of the time process for their container, their physical body. They maturate a new one, and then they can just simply move into that new form and then recycle the old body. Now, if we think about that, humans already do that.
Mm-hmm.
You've stepped into your physical form. When your body is, ready to go, you step out of your body, you recycle back into spirit realm, your body goes back to dust or whatever. And then when you're ready, you then through, sort of mum and dad, whatever, you then you recycle back into the physical again. I think with humans, they've just got that one extra step there for spirit realm, whereas the Zetas don't need a spirit realm, because if they don't want to be in body, they don't have to be. Now, guess what? Humans are the same. Humans astral travel. So they leave their bodies, they go and travel around, they come back. You know that you can hold yourself if you're an astral traveler or doing OBE outside of your physical form. The difference is you think you need to come back to the physical body. With the Zetas, they're able to just stay out of the physical form if they want to, and put their physical body into stasis.
Interesting. So then what happens?
Or not even have a physical body if they don't want one.
Okay. So then what would separate that from the spirit realm? Like just a non-corporeal Zeta being, would that not be considered their version of the spirit realm?
So the difference between this planet and other planets is that spirit realm was created. Spirit realm's a technology.
Okay.
Humans are an introduced species onto this planet, and so they've been given a place to cycle in and out of. That technology is called spirit realm. With the other races, they've just managed to bypass that technology. I guess it's just a technicality, and they're able to, using what's called consensus reality, hold each other in space, not in space, hold each other in consciousness. Because if two or more agree, then obviously you're able to hold that space. Humans can actually do this as well. You see, this is where the true ascension of humanity is heading, that we can bypass the spirit realm process and no longer be locked into this whole karmic debt that people believe in. The fact that people feel that they need to incarnate, all these things. These are old belief systems that will surely pass away in the future.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I don't believe in karma. But I always feel like I'm one of the few people that doesn't.
Everybody seems to.
Yeah. So what happens then to those, as you said, approximately 30% of the population would be that kind of ET spirit person hybrid, right? So when that person passes away, do those consciousnesses then separate again? Or do they reincarnate through the same process?
So spirit part goes back to spirit realm, and the extraterrestrial consciousness returns back to its race.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. I think I get it now. So have you had any, I'm just curious. This is just me being nosy. So I know you have contact all the time when you're at home. Have you had contact like since you've left home too? Do they follow you everywhere?
Yeah, we've had contact. Yeah. But interestingly, I was told that you were going to ask that question today. I was also told that you were going to ask about the synthetic quantum environment, as I spoke to you before this show. Yeah. And they said that they wanted me to tell people that it's not always a being that's in their house. It's often it's just technology that's been placed in their house. And so when you go somewhere, say you have contact when you're at home, and then you go and stay somewhere else, rather than the beings coming with you, they'll just project technology into your premises and then monitor you using the technology.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Boo the Beagle says, why don't we see more ETs in various clothes? They always seem naked. They need robes.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I don't know. That depends on the species, I guess.
Yeah, it depends on the race.
Depends on the race. So with the greys, generally, if they're going to become a guide for somebody, they'll turn up and they'll have a cloak on, and it's a ceremonial cloak, and they'll wear it once. It's their way of introducing themselves. Other races are fully clothed.
Yeah.
I think the thing is that people focus on maybe one race or two races, whereas we could have. There's the capacity for there to be hundreds of races around us in the galaxy, and I've seen races dressed in metallic clothing. Other races dressed in what would be considered just normal cotton looking clothing. Other races covered in feathers, the avian races. Other races completely covered in like paint. Like specific colours and those sorts of things. It's as diverse as the insect population is on this planet. So if you look at insects and their structure, a praying mantis to a butterfly to a dragonfly, they're all different, and so are all the races as well on the way that they dress.
So then, this is one thing I've always wondered, and maybe it's oh my gosh. What am I trying to think of? Contamination issue, but like, why is it seem that oftentimes you'll hear from people who have been on craft that they are brought up or they're naked on craft. Like, what is going on with that?
Sorry, who's naked on craft?
Like the people that like the humans that are brought on craft. Oftentimes they'll report they were naked when they were there. They look down and they have no clothes on.
They don't understand clothes. They're not human. They're not thinking like humans. They a lot of the grey races, they don't wear anything. That's their normal state. So it's just not in their mindset. Whereas us humans, we're all thinking, oh my God, why are they naked? Well, that's because we wear clothes all the time.
They're probably wondering why you've got clothes on, to be honest.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I remember, like, as a kid, like, and I didn't know what was going on at the time, but and like a lot of like people, like contactees, abductees, whatever they refer to themselves, say, oh, my pajamas were on backwards and inside out, or woke up without any on. I remember waking up without any on, and they were folded on my chair. And I know as a kid, I certainly did not wake up in the middle of the night, take my pajamas off, fold them, and put them on a chair because I was a kid. Wouldn't even do that awake. So, like, what is the purpose of taking the clothes off? Just
Well, I guess we're going to have to guess at this because mostly if people see this is again, let's flesh this out a bit. So person A goes on craft and sees themselves naked on a operating table or whatever. Person B goes on and they have a screen memory attached that says that they're flying a craft, but in reality, they're probably laying on a table naked somewhere.
Yeah.
Person C could be fully in bed and their etheric body has been taken aboard a craft. You see, that's the problem is working through the magic of the phenomenon and trying to work out, well, what is actually going on? And generally 99% of the people that are all contacted and taken, they're absolutely convinced that what's taken place for them was the truth. And then they find out 10 years later that it was a screen memory.
Yeah.
And that may not have happened, especially people that have had hypnotherapy or the type C screen memory's dropped, and then the person goes, well, I thought that was true, but now I know it's not.
Do you think that they ever, this is another thing I've always wondered, because I've had a lot of weird things when I was a kid, right? So I always kind of wondered, like, now as an adult, looking back on it, do they sometimes, have the Zetas ever talked to you about, do they sometimes leave little clues to get people to realize something's going on? Like, as a kid, I woke up, I was a teenager, actually, I wasn't even a kid. I woke up standing up in the middle of my bed, which is a very strange and like jolting way to wake up. Let me tell you, you're just like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Or, you know, like having your clothes taken off, folded up, put somewhere, or on backwards and inside out. Do they leave little clues sometimes? Like, is that why these things happen? Cyan has a very knowing look.
I'm just thinking that, well, why don't you just say what you're thinking?
I didn't know whether they were talking to you or not. No, I think yes, they definitely do like leave little clues sometimes. You know, you hear of all the marks that appear like moles overnight and then slowly disappear a week later, or bruises that look like they should hurt but don't hurt at all, and you have no rational explanation for them. But then, you know, the things like the clothes on back to front, inside out, or folded up at the end of the bed, is that deliberate or not, or is that just because they didn't quite get it right? You know, I've woken up with my, you know, clothes on all on inside out.
Yes, now, me too.
You know, I did ask them about that, and I don't think it was intentional that they did that on that occasion. But I think, you know, a lot of the times they visit, they definitely are leaving something there, like a little plaster that's got its edge just curled up a little bit for you to catch and pull off, so you get the memory back to some degree of something that's happened.
Or the other one is that you've got missing time, and then suddenly you look and you realize that your fingernails have grown exponentially, not just normally, or you know, you've not shaven as much as you were before, and you know, you get to know your own body, don't you? You know what those changes are on an hour by hour basis during the day. And if all of a sudden, you know, something's changed about yourself, well, in respect, that could be some sort of identification for a person as well.
Yeah, I was worried about the standing up in the middle of the bed one. I was just kind of like, is it possible that they just got the position that we sleep in wrong? I don't like, maybe, but they see all of us sleeping laying down, so.
Well, a lot of people also end up with marks on them, you know. I mean, there's a lot of documented
I get those too.
Specific marks, triangles, 3 dots, mirror image sort of marks as well. I think somebody actually put one out on the internet. There was a whole sheet with all the different descriptions with pictures, and it was quite substantial. I've seen one where it was like a round circle with a grid inside, and you know, it was really interesting pattern. That has been created.
I think it's literally called red grid mark phenomena or something. You can Google it. It's there. And eraser marks is another term that MUFON uses. But
yeah, that's interesting. So now, are those like, I know I've gotten like some interesting ones too. I think I told you, like, there was one time I woke up and I had this perfectly round circular bruise on the back of my calf. It was a good size. It was probably about that big. Took up pretty much my whole like calf, but it was perfectly round. And then I've also had, you know, like 3 puncture marks in the shape of a triangle, or I've also had ones in the shape of an X. Like, that was multiple puncture marks all at once. Like, are those like different tools that they use maybe, or like what is all of that that's going on there?
All I know is, you know, and we can only know what we know, and after that, then people will just start making stuff up. So what I know about myself is that some of the marks are triangular, others are actual puncture marks, you know, where they've taken sort of a core of skin. The other ones are some more bizarre ones, like I sent you a couple of pictures. Dots, 3 dots in a row. I've got pictures of people that have sort of been abducted, and they've got the most bizarre image prints on them. Like it's like, you just, and it seems to me that, yes, you're right. It can be some of the technology that's also being used as well. I think predominantly it would have to be the technology that's leaving most of the marks. Although I want to caveat that by saying I've also seen marks that had nothing to do with technology either. They were actually handprints. So,
yeah, I've gotten those like fingerprint bruises, like on your arm. You'll get them sometimes, that are like 3 or it's usually I think 3 or 4 if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've gotten those, but it's interesting. And guys, I keep putting the link in the chat if anybody wants to jump on and have a question or tell us a story that you've had. But that's fascinating. It's really interesting. Yeah. It's so, what's really interesting too is that I was at it was after a conference. I had friends who they used to throw a conference. It was called Experience or Speak in Maine. And with a lot of the people that they were friends with, they would do a like a camp out afterwards at this lake house that they had. And so there were a lot of us there. And one morning, one year, we woke up and there was, I think, like 3 or 4 of us. I was one of the people that all had like triangular marks in one way or another. Like I had on my foot like a bruise in the shape of a triangle. It's very strange. And then a couple other people had like triangular marks. I can't remember if they were all bruises or if some were a little different, but it was really, really strange. What's with the triangles? Why is it always triangles?
It's interesting. We had someone once ask if they could see the Zeta race. It was in a sitting, and the Zeta, through me, leaned forward and said, "I'll show you." And suddenly the person saw a triangle with an eye in the middle of it. But it was so powerful that the person basically got knocked backwards off the chair. It seems to be that a triangle is some sort of indication of some specific races as well.
Interesting.
And so it's not uncommon to see those triangular shapes when you're meditating and all the rest of them.
Yeah. I know one time, it's funny you say that, because one time when I was meditating and I never really knew like what it meant, but it was like I saw it was a pyramid, which isn't exactly a triangle, but there was like one pyramid upright and then right under it, one pyramid upside down, like one on top of the other. Never knew what it meant, but it was interesting. One of those weird things that like makes you go, weird. That's usually my reaction. It's like, that's weird.
What do you think the pyramid stuff normally means?
Well, for me personally, I can only talk about me personally. In meditation, if I see a pyramid heading my way, it's normally the Zeta's about to make some sort of connection with me.
Maybe that's what it was. You never know, I guess, right? So Enzo has a question. If someone does wake up and find marks on themselves, what should they do?
They should document it.
Yeah.
They should document the date and the time. They take pictures.
Yeah.
They get somebody else to actually view the mark if it's an appropriate place to view, because it'll probably just fade away very quickly. What you want to do if you get in contact and this is probably one of the things that people don't do, is they don't document everything. But if you start to document it and date it and time, things like what did I feel last night? What happened when I was asleep? Do I remember getting up during the night? Was there a specific time where something took place? I mean, I can think of so many times myself where I've gone, okay, there's something going on here. And I will just say to them, do not put me to sleep. I want to see what's going on. So Enzo, I would suggest that you document everything, and all those pieces of the puzzle will start to come together.
Yeah, absolutely. And write down your experiences too. I found that by doing that, especially like with this presentation coming up, I've really sat down and tried to write down everything that I could remember, starting from when I was really, really young. And it was fascinating. One, I didn't realize I had so many because, you lived them, so you don't even really think about them until you write them down and you realize like, wow, there's actually a lot going on here. But it also helped me kind of like, what's that?
I did that as well the other day. I thought, I'm just going to sit down. I'm going to write down as many interactions as I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
And just in bullet point form with no white space between them or whatever. I got two A4 sheets full of interactions that I can fully remember. And of course, there'd have to be another 20 pages that I just couldn't remember at all.
Yeah.
And I actually started documenting my stuff probably 20 years ago. I've now got a massive database. That's where all the books came from. The Primer of the Zeta Race, Alien Interaction, all those books came from all that contact that I was having as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing is that they notice what you do. So if they can see that you're interested enough to try to work through the woo of the phenomenon, that by documenting it, that they will actually start to leave you more clues as well.
Interesting. Yeah. And I found too, like, it also helps you remember some of the things that that you remembered consciously in the moment, but maybe, kind of forgot over time. It kind of spurs your memory like, oh yeah, I also remember this time too. And you just would have completely forgotten about it before.
Well, triggers are a big thing for people. So it may be that there'll be that one thing in the morning that you remember. And if you're quick enough at writing it down, because, you can wake up and then 10, 15 seconds later, you can't remember. So if you quickly write it down or jump on your phone and say it into your phone, and then what you can do is you can work backwards from there. And you can basically unpack that contact for that night just by the last thread that they left.
Yeah.
And we do that ourselves all the time.
I try to do that, but like the time I get to the phone, I'm like, oh, I forgot it. It's terrible. So we have the Sixth Sense who's going to jump on with us. Welcome.
Hello. Hey, Len. Hey, Paul. Hey, Cyan. Did I say that right?
Hello.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'll be right off the bat here. I am a skeptic, although I do believe there's life out there. I just don't know in what form. Personally, I doubt that it in any physical form, such as little green men with antenna, as I like to put it. But here's the thing: I want to believe that there's something other than us out there. I'm not gonna lie about that. I think that that's perfectly healthy as well. But here's the problem that I have with it, though. As you said yourself earlier, I've been listening for a while. It's almost faith-based that. You have no proof to show. How are you going to show something that's spiritual? There's no camera in the world that I know of that'll take it. How can you have so much faith in something that, granted, you can't prove it to somebody else? Even hey, if you believe it, that's perfectly fine. But how is somebody else gonna say, yeah, that's pretty reasonable? Do you see where I'm going with that? I mean, I don't want to insult you or nothing, but
no.
We understand.
If anybody understands, I think we understand, to be honest. We're mediums, and so we work with spirit people, and people go, well, spirit people, really. But the thing is that generally a lot of people accept spirit people. Spirit people are generally able to give information about their lives when they existed. And, somebody comes to a medium for a reading, and you can, if the spirit wants to give that information across. It happened to me the other week. I was able to give information. It was just impossible, as far as I was concerned, that this information would even be correct, and it turned out it was. And so the person in some respects was able to get, some release from their grief in regards to that. So that's spirit. But on the other side, if we talk about ET, I always make sure, sorry, what is your actual name?
Just the sixth, yeah. Just the sixth.
Sixth sense, yeah. Some people, don't like to give it out.
Okay. Yeah. I always make sure I have people with me. So when the craft first came, I had 3 friends with me, and they all saw it. The second time that the craft came and landed, I had 20 people with me.
Yeah.
And so when you say to me, well, how can I sort of provide evidence? Well, my evidence is I had witnesses with me.
Yeah. They've also performed countless healings as well, medically proven. People's cancers have come off, and due for surgery the next day, they've turned up for their surgery and it's gone.
I think that I'm sorry, honey. Go ahead.
That's good.
I'm the fan of that. You can pretty much, and not medical advice that you can pretty much heal yourself. I think that you're your own best doctor. I've always believed that. Here's the thing, though. I'm really pressed between spirituality. I want to believe that there's something else there, that there's, I'm saying to myself, there's got to be something there, but I have no proof that there's anything there. It could all just be in my mind, as some people have portrayed it as like the Matrix, right? You're really not there. You think you're there, though.
I agree, absolutely.
Here's a question, though, and I'm not sure what your stand on this is that are these creatures or beings spiritual and not necessarily physical, or can they be both, or are they alien, or are they not alien and they're just spirits? You see what I'm getting at?
I do. Yeah, and so we, as mediums, and I've been a medium for many, many years, I can tell the difference between spirit people and extraterrestrials. That's the first thing. There are extraterrestrials that are non-corporeal entities, and so that because they have no physical manifestation of themselves, they would seem to be spirit-like. So that's the first thing. But when the craft landed and I had my 20 friends with me, this was only about 10 years ago or something, those beings were able to walk around all of us, and as they were walking on this very granular sand that was making a lot of noise. They then stopped and put their hands on each person's shoulders. There was a lot of people there. There were a lot of witnesses that saw this take place, that experienced it. I'm happy to have people with me, because the next day I'm going, that didn't happen, right? And people go, no, it actually did happen because we were there with you when it happened. Your mind wants to believe that it happened, but there's some part of you that says it's not possible that it happened. And I think that's the problem with everything that we do, is we do want to believe. But the difference is that I'm not a type of person that just believes something because I experience it. I want evidence from these beings that they are who they say they are. So when they first started talking to me, I said, well, you tell me 5 things that you say that you can do, because I'm fairly skeptical about everything. And if you don't do it, you can just nick off. Okay. But I am. And I said, and so they said, okay, well, we'll do this. We'll come in a craft. We'll do this, that. And they did everything that they'd say they did. And I said, well, okay, what else? What's the point of you coming? I hear so many people saying, oh, they're coming to save the planet and all this. I'm not interested in hearing that sort of stuff. Either heal someone or go home. End of story. And so they started doing a lot of healings on people. I mean, hundreds of people. And, we're not going to go into each individual case. If you have a look on our website, there's testimonials from people that have been healed by the Zetas as well. And that's on the zetaconnection.com. And that, we just said to people, look, would you like to put your testimonials up just as a reference for other people that may be struggling to understand whether this stuff exists or not? And this is the real problem, isn't it? That we get to a point where we want to believe, but we're not sure what to believe. There's so much out there. If we haven't had any real experiences ourselves, then what we're doing is we're just relying on somebody else talking. Now, I could say to you, oh no, you know, craft exists. I've seen one. And you may go, yeah, but Paul, that could have just been, you know, in your mind and you never saw it. Okay, and then I go, well, you know, I had people with me. Well, that may have been in their mind as well. Oh, okay. And so we could keep playing that until at some point we go, well, then nothing exists.
Okay,
I don't exist. You don't exist. You see what I mean?
Yeah. I got a question that you brought up something here. Now, as somebody that's a skeptic such as me, you know, I really, you know, I want to believe it, but if there's no proof, I really can't believe it. Now, given somebody in my position, if I was to join your group of 20 people, would I experience the same thing as you all? Because I'm feeling skeptical about it. And is it general that the people that you're with want to believe themselves? I mean, is that like a common thing? Do you see where I'm going with that?
No, I do, absolutely. And people that know me know that I'm very skeptical. And this is, I'm probably, I'm a diehard skeptic, right? And, you know, I got interviewed by a guy who calls himself the typical skeptic or something. I said, mate, you got no idea what being skeptic is, you know. I come across so many people that want me to believe in their story. And I say to them, well, where's your evidence? Where is the evidence for this, right? So I've worked with scientists, and those scientists have studied what I do. They've even been given their own evidence from the Zetas as well. If you have a look in the book, The Primer of the Zeta Race, you'll see one of the scientists had some sort of skin cancer on his nose, his face, and was told that within 7 days it would fall off. And on the 7th day, it fell off, and he took pictures. He documented the whole thing. Okay, so that's why I say to people, don't believe what I say. Get your own evidence. Yeah, get your own evidence. But the other thing is that have a look at the material that's out there, whether it's the UAP disclosure stuff or the primer of the Zeta Race, you know, or whatever, and you just make up your own mind. I'm actually not in any way interested in convincing anybody of anything. That's the best part about it, because we know on a day-to-day basis that we have contact with beings, we have contact with spirit people. I'll give you an example. My father, he died, and nobody even knew that he'd passed over. He was in his house dead, right? He came and spoke to me for an hour. Then the phone rang, and they said, we've just found your father. He's been dead for an hour. I said, yeah, I know, and just hung up. You see, that's my evidence. Now, is that possible that I made that whole conversation up? Probably, but I'm pretty sure that it's a bit difficult to know that someone's died when you've got no information and then have a conversation with them. You know.
You know, I hate to take up your show there, Lynn, but I have another question, if that's okay.
Yeah, please. Go for it.
You know what? You just keep asking questions. That's fine.
Oh, I got a lot of them. Trust me. Okay, you spoke of them being able to, let's say, heal you. However, somebody wants to take that. And let's just exclude the ET portion of it. Okay, let's talk about just spiritual, the spiritual beings. Would you say that they were of God or God-like, where they have these abilities rather than an actual physical interaction? You see what I'm getting at? You know, do they have the ability to just do it with their mind, let's say, or their power or whatever they might possess? How are they healing people?
You know what they do? They do, and we do know spirits quite well. We've got spirits around us. You know, I've been able to see spirits from basically, 18 months old. I mean, like, I can see a normal person, like just there. And that's been an issue because I couldn't tell the difference between spirit people and the living.
It's like 1984, right?
Yeah, great. I would suggest that spirit people actually have the ability to heal the living because they're able to work with that layer between spirit realm and the physical. And that layer we call the etheric body. And because they're able to shift and change the frequency of that then manifests down into the physical. they don't need to be godlike to perform that function themselves. I mean, to me, I believe that source consciousness, if we go right back to the very, beginning of whatever that is, whatever a beginning is,
right,
that source consciousness is playing a game with itself, and that it's manifesting itself in infinite forms for infinite experience. In the end, none of us probably exist anyway. But while we have to think that we exist, then we have to understand that we have to play by the rule book of that existence as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of controversy over something such as that. Where did we come from? Was it the chicken or the egg kind of thing? And I don't think anybody truly knows the answer, whether they've talked to spirits or gods or whatever they've talked to.
Yeah.
I don't know that they could even comprehend actually how.
I was going to say that the reality is it's no chicken and no egg. There is none needed. Okay.
Yeah, and that's so hard to grasp.
Well, that's the whole point. I believe that the human mind does not have the capacity to understand source consciousness because it's a construct. And because it is a construct that filters and has rule sets and belief structures, then of course, when it tries to understand the infinite the infinite, it's stepping outside of its boundaries of understanding. It doesn't matter how intelligent you think you are. Nobody can actually tell you what consciousness is. There's a lot of description. Yeah.
Or infinity. I mean, can the human mind actually grasp the concept and the real concept of what infinity is? I don't think it's even possible at all.
Not at all. Not at all.
So do you see these people as let's say a life force? I mean, do you see them visually just like another person, or do you see them in like a ghosty type form?
Ghosty, no. We don't see them as ghosts. Okay, so the big difference between spirits and ghosts, for a start. Spirit people can show themselves in any form that they want, and generally they show themselves in the best possible light. So, if you're 90 years old when you've passed over, you're not going to come back as a 90-year-old person. You may come back, maybe 45, 50. And that causes a bit of confusion for mediums trying to give a reading. I've got somebody that looks 50 years old and the person goes, no, my grandfather was 90 when he died. So that's another thing. But spirits can also manifest as children. They can manifest as male or female. It's up to them how they manifest. So, yeah.
So generally difficult. that wouldn't follow what we know as the laws of physics. I mean, apparently their ability to morph into whatever form they want. Is it more like they want you to see them like this, or are they actually like that? Are they convincing you?
Good question. I had a spirit walk through the wall. I know this sounds a bit crazy. Walk through the wall. He says to me, "Get a pen and paper." I got one. He gave me all of his information, names of his children, his wife, where he was married, where he died, and then we went and researched it and got all of his certificates. Yeah. And he actually looked like that. That was the thing. And I mean, why would he then bother to evidence himself so heavily to me? It's because that person had decided for some reason that they wanted to, hang out and sort of be my guide and all these sorts of things. And so there's, a million questions about that. Why do spirit people want to be people's guides? Are they contracted to the living? All these sorts of things. I mean, this is go for 100 years, these conversations.
So is there like a message that they're trying to send us all? I mean, and overall, not just individual.
Yeah, absolutely. The overall message is that when you pass over, it is not the end of your life, and that you exist. And I'll tell you why.
I think I believe that too. Yeah, I don't know why.
Because you came from somewhere to become a human, and now when you leave that form, you then move on and you still exist. And they want people to know in the physical that this is the temporary environment.
So this envelops the consciousness as you speak of it. The consciousness is global, is universal, is infinite, meaning that we're actually existing in the conscious and not necessarily in the physical realm. I mean, did I get that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you do. And the reason we know that, we can actually evidence that, is because we're always observing ourselves. If I asked you what you were doing yesterday at lunchtime, whatever, you'll see yourself doing something.
Yes.
You see, you have an instant image of yourself doing something, because we have the observer effect. And the observer effect is our higher selves, which is, working through this physical form, but it's actually observing everything we're doing.
So people that are, extremely religious, which I'm not a great fan of, because I think that's requires too much faith for at least me. Even though I want to believe that there's a spirit realm, who are they? What are they? What is their purpose? I can't say that they're, from God or of God. I can't say they are God.
Yeah.
I don't know that. And it's a struggle for me to.
And I understand that, but that's a religious discussion. And what we need to do is, look, let's just take the religion away. Let's take the whole God construct away, because another being on another planet may not consider God as being that entity. And what we need to understand is that there's either two situations, and there can only be two. One is that there is no source consciousness, no God, and that we are an accident. And that every time somebody is born, that it is an accident that they're able to manage through consciousness, to be able to cognitively manage and understand and work within this physical environment. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is that actually there is a God and there is source consciousness, and there is an extensualized process that consciousness uses to experience itself through infinite capacity. I go with the second one every single time.
Yeah, I think everybody has a question on this, and I'm glad that you said that you were skeptical, and probably a huge skeptic, and that's basically why I really liked Art Bell from the past. I don't like any of the other hosts because they're not skeptical. They want to force this opinion on you, and I'm like, well, at least Art Bell gave you the opportunity to decide for yourself, and that's why I liked them so much. But I haven't seen anybody else.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
Just make up your own mind. I actually don't care what people believe. Okay, I just don't. I mean, I've got past the stage of worrying about what people. People so easily jump onto the bandwagon of something, and I say to them, "Well, where's your evidence? What have you done?" We see people all the time that say they're channeling extraterrestrials, but they don't realise that we can see the spirit person standing behind them. Pretending to be an ET.
Huh. That's interesting, because that's the kind of people that I really question their legitimacy. They're saying that these spirit people are talking to them, and yet they can't. Well, let's see, where they can ask these spirit people, or these oh God, I don't know a word for them, spirit people. They can ask them a simple question, and yet they don't have the answer to it. You see what I'm saying? I mean, no, that didn't come out very well.
But there's a reason for that. So let me give you an example. You may say to a spirit person, give me the name of your cat. And the spirit person goes, I can't remember, right? But the spirit person can accurately relay things that they did with the person. So there might be non-specific things that they can't remember and non-specific things that they can remember. It's like you've shifted into a different framework, a different frequency. And a lot of the things that you think or a person would think that would matter actually don't matter anymore to you, because you're outside of your physical form.
Right. It's something that, right. I mean, you remember things that you need to remember, not necessarily things that, like, I don't remember that cat going by me walking down the street, although you seen it, I didn't notice it. So I suppose that's reasonable. I did have another question, but it escapes me now. Here's what I was going to ask, and I'll try to make this short, Lynn. I'm so sorry. Okay, you speak to it as a consciousness. Now, being that, I mean, is there a limit to the amount, like a volume of consciousness? Is there a limit? Because unless it's truly infinite, there would be a limit. Not sure if I said that right.
Yeah, I can answer your question.
Okay.
Your capacity to understand consciousness is limited by your local construct, the construct. And so that's why we use the word limit. But if we realize that those constructs are trying to define something that's undefinable, then we understand that there is no limit to consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we grow up, from just very young to getting older, we hopefully learn, things as we go along, and I think that, hence my name, The Sixth Sense. I think I have a pretty decent ability to read somebody's mind, or read what their intentions are, and call me crazy, call me what. I believe that I have the ability to see this in people, and is that something spiritual? I don't know. Is it
Well, you are, this is the thing, the Zetas have said to us, listen, nobody's special. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
But everybody's different. And because everybody's different,
Right.
and the fact that everybody is actually a consciousness, all you're doing is experiencing yourself in a way that you are providing yourself evidence. You say that you can read things about people. In doing that, you're building up a body of evidence.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean, though. Is it the consciousness speaking to me, or talking to me, or saying, hey, look at, this is what you're actually seeing. This is why you were. Boy, I'm really getting it. It's so difficult to say how exactly, what I feel. What I'm saying is that what is telling me this stuff? The consciousness?
You are. You are.
And I am the construct.
No, I don't mean you as in the physical person.
Right.
I mean the higher self. The higher self is speaking through to the local consciousness, and what it's doing is it's showing you the reality of your existence is not just based in the physical, but it's also based in things that are intuitive, things that are based in energy.
Yeah, and that's the thing, though. I'm wondering what the spirit realm, and I hate to keep putting it like that, but that's how I understand it, is actually made of. In because I've studied physics all my life. I mean, I'm no physicist, but I've studied it all my life. The stars, the planets, the solar system, the universe. And still to this day, I have an extreme interest in it, and that's why I'm thinking there's no way we are the only life form. I can't prove it right yet, but
right where you're sitting now, there are thousands of radio waves from all the different radio stations going through your body.
Oh yeah.
Also, all of the phone calls that are taking place backwards and forwards around everybody are also bouncing off all the walls going through you as well. You can't see any of them, but you know that they exist because you've got a device that you can ring somebody on, right? So you know that stuff exists even though you can't see it. If you tried to convince somebody from the past that this stuff existed without a phone in your hand, they'd say you were crazy, right? And you'd say, you'd be saying, man, I'm telling you, there's radio waves out there, and they're going, yes, I'm sure there is. You'll be okay. And you'll be going, no, I'm telling you, there's this phone, there's this device. Well, guess what the device is? The device is the medium, right? But because people don't see that, they don't understand it, they don't see mediums as a technology that are interacting as an intermediary process between other people and spirit people, they don't understand that process.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. So you got me thinking here.
So The Sixth Sense, I got a question for you too, and keep Keep asking questions. That's what we're here for. So don't apologize. Were you here? I think, was it last week, Paul and Cyan, where you were talking about how the Anunnaki created the spirit realm? Because I've been kind of sitting back listening, and I think I understand maybe where you're getting caught up, the Sixth Sense, which is that you're equating spirit realm to spiritual.
Well,
and maybe catching you up.
I've heard so many versions of what this is like and who they are talking to and what they are made of, or descriptions. I mean, I've listened, and I've seriously, and I should not, I have listened to every single Art Bell broadcast all the way up till about, well, since he retired, whenever that was, and so I've heard so many stories. Now, as Paul had stated, that there's some parts that I can't tell you exactly what they said, but I know what they were saying, if that makes any sense. I know what they meant. So for me, it was like somebody reading a story to me, and I'm picking out the parts that interest me, and all the stuff that doesn't really matter, I don't really pay attention to. So, no, I'm not really a ghost or a spirit person. Although I like I said, I want to believe something's there, and I just don't think that again, as my name suggests, I don't think that we only have five senses. There's something else there, and I can't prove it, but there's something there. There's something there.
Yeah, it's you, and that's why you see. If you, as I said before, you've come from somewhere, you're experiencing this physical container, which is your human body, and then you'll go somewhere. But while you're here in this physical container, we're very, very limited by all of the belief structures that we have. We're also limited by frequency as well. And we are told a lot of things, and we try to, from the different pieces that we're told, we try to build a picture. But unless we do that through evidencing that information ourselves, we end up with a distorted view.
I'll share something with you that only very few people have ever heard. How about that? Sometime back, maybe maybe like my teen to 25 or something like that, 17 to 25, let's say, for instance, I used to see myself as, or think of myself as, a machine. And I know that sounds weird, but that's how I seen things, and that's how I gathered information. I read tons of white papers and tons of and seen tons of information, and I soaked it in because I'm a machine, right? Same thing when I'm doing like hard labor. I'm a machine. I'm a machine. And for the longest time, I felt like a machine, and my mind was so quick and sharp and fast, and and that's because I think that I built myself like that. But how much different are we, or do you feel, are we than a machine is collecting and dealing with information?
Well, it depends on what aspect of consciousness you're being presented as. If you're an extraterrestrial consciousness being presented as a human, then you may be some sort of AI that's been put forward by an extraterrestrial race. You see, the mistake that people make is to believe that only spirit people incarnate into human form.
I think that maybe, okay, it's definitely slanted toward, let's say, the AI side of it, because I've been into computers since they've literally been out, that were available. I'm kind of aging myself there, but that's okay. And I've always thought, I've always thought, why was I thinking that during that period of my life? I beat myself stupid is what I did, at least in the physical side of it. It really damaged my body thinking that I was a machine. I know this sounds weird, but my mind was also a machine too. And maybe my own being was a machine, or I respected machines, or I thought that machines were just so beautiful and they're so efficient, and I tried to do the same thing. I mean, I don't know what really got me to lose that concept, or where I lost it, that I'm no longer a machine. I'm just a physical human being. I ain't no more special than the next person. But but see, what I did early on was I soaked my mind with all types of information, like multiple different subjects. I mean, more on the physics side and like space and stuff like that. I've always been interested in that, and that's why I probably originally was interested in what UFOs were. When like Art Bell spoke about them, I'm like, are these really people coming to visit us, and what is their purpose for visiting us? So I mean, since then I've seen so many bad, horrible examples of uh, you know um, alien contact that I find myself, I don't believe that stuff no more.
I'll tell you what. Why don't you have a look? The Primer is a free book, the Primer of the Zeta Race, and it's been written by myself and a scientist. So, since you've got a scientific mind, why don't you have a read?
Yeah, and the link is down in the description.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, I'm kind of got a couple things going on here, but I will check it out later. I don't feel that I'm special in this world, although I tried hard to soak my mind with as much information as I possibly could, and maybe at some point I overloaded. But I mean, and that's why I asked you the question: is there like a cap to the consciousness? Is there a limit to what you can possibly hold in your mind consciously?
No, there's not. No, there's not.
Okay, I'm going to give these.
Okay.
I'm going to give these other lovely people a chance here. Thank you so much, Lennon. Thank you, Paul and Cyan.
See you. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Dorothy. How are you? Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, hi. Thanks so much, Lynn, for letting me come into the StreamYard. I have a question for Paul and Cyan. My son passed away nearly 2 years ago from a hemorrhagic stroke. He was discovered on Monday and passed away on a Wednesday. And in the time that I was going down to where he was living and trying to get his things settled at his apartment, I had the distinct feeling that he was with me already. And I was talking to him while he was in the hospital. And I said, you probably think it's pretty funny. You're probably looking at the back of my head as I'm talking to this person in this bed, but I can't figure out if that was just my grief or if that was really a true thing. I had a pennies from heaven experience. The morning he died, a dime and a penny showed up with dates significant to my parents on the bathroom rug after my third trip to the bathroom. And nothing had been there before. And I called the ICU nurse and to find out that he had passed away, just a few minutes earlier. So to me, these pennies and this coinage was like, it's okay, honey, he's with us now. He's here with us, But I don't know if I'm just personalizing that through my grieving or if that is an actual communication thing that people can do when they're in that in-between sort of state. He lingered, quite a bit in a coma.
They can, yeah, absolutely they can. It's called either an apport or an asport, where they can place physical items in front of their loved ones. I've seen it before myself.
Yeah, I've experienced it myself as well. Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you another question about something that has been spoken about a lot in society in the last little bit here, the Great Awakening, everybody becoming awake and aware, and is that having to do with everyone gaining more in terms of this intuitiveness or their sense capabilities in your mind's eye?
I think that there's an awakening happening because people are feeling threatened. People are looking at what's going on across the planet globally over the last few years, and they're starting to realize that the whole basic premise of existence doesn't hold water anymore. The whole basic premise of going to work 9 to 5, this process, that process, doesn't seem to stick anymore. And now we've moved into 2022, and we're now faced with a completely different situation. And I think that the Great Awakening is based around people realizing that the belief structures that they've held for many years don't hold water anymore.
Well, thank you so much for your time and helping me get a little bit of a better understanding of what I went through a little bit ago there. Thank you.
That's okay.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Dorothy.
Lynn.
Yeah. All right. So, Doug, we have you on here with us as well. How are you?
Hi, you.
Oh, I'm fine.
Hey, Doug.
All right.
Hi.
Hello.
I didn't have any particular question at the moment. I just I saw your link in there and was wondering what that was about, so I just tapped on it.
Well, welcome.
Otherwise, I was listening on YouTube directly before.
All right. Well, have you ever had any questions you've been dying to ask Paul and Cyan?
Well,
any thoughts about what we've said?
Yeah, we've spoken before in another meeting, and there's a few things that I had brought up. Damned if I could think of what the heck they were right now.
The pressure's on.
Lynn, I think though that there was some questions before in the chat about either remote viewing or something.
Something about astral travel.
Oh yes, Dave Scott asked, was there a difference between remote viewing and astral travel? Yeah, here it is.
Spaced out radio.
That's Dave Scott.
Oh, Dave. Good day, Dave. Yeah, there is, because with remote viewing, you're extending your abilities, and you're not actually leaving your physical body. And with astral traveling, you're actually leaving the physical body, moving to another space in consciousness. It's like a bilocation process.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much what I told you.
I had a question, if I could ask one.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Okay, now you're mediums, and I understand what that means. But I don't understand. Okay, if you're a human medium, can you only talk to human entities or of that sort? What about the animals? Can you mediate between animals and humans just the same?
Yeah, of course you can. You can become an animal intuitive. You've got to understand that just because someone's a medium doesn't mean that they are a medium for everything. And so I've got a friend who's actually very good at being a medical intuitive for animals, and generally that's his strength as a medium. Another medium may be have a better strength in communicating with loved ones. Other ones may be, medical intuitives, and so each medium has their own abilities, and they need to work on those to strengthen them.
I guess I never really took that into consideration or realized that you're specialized in a particular aspect of mediating. I didn't really know that was the thing, but the reason why I asked is because I had a cat that had passed away.
Right.
Okay. I had a cat that had passed away, and I buried him outside in the backyard there, and every now and then I just talk to him. I don't know if he's talking back. I don't know if that's just in my mind, but is there a point? Here's the question though. Is there a point where you talk to them and they're relieved and they can move on and whatever their existence is, or do they ever really leave? I mean, maybe that's a better question. Do they ever really leave?
Well, I think it's everything. This is the thing. It's not always just like it's either black or white. It's not like that at all. So I had a dog that got run over, and the next day he walked straight up. He was gone. He turned up and he was standing there looking at his bowl. I thought, well, okay. So I put some food in the bowl, and he just looked at it and walked off. And then I put the food back into the bag, and then the next day, same thing, and I put the food in the bowl, and he just looked at it and he walked off. And I noticed, though, every day he got more transparent, and to the point that on day 7 I couldn't see him anymore. And I kept talking to him, saying, look, it's okay. I know that you're in spirit realm, whatever. So that can be one situation. And I've also seen earthbound spirits that are staying with a loved one because they want to be with that person until they pass over themselves. Yeah. Animals can stay with their owners if they want to as well. Every living entity has free will. And whatever decisions you make about yourself, whether animal or human, is your decision and your intention. And so no one can tell you, well, that's just not possible in regards to the animals or whatever, because those animals will make those decisions for themselves.
Well, that's the reason why I asked, because you mentioned about consciousness, and I hear this quite often, actually. And the thing is, I've heard people say that animals aren't conscious. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? They're probably more conscious than we are. I think so. And I also believe, especially dogs, for some reason, I know they got great hearing, but they can almost sense something before it actually happens. I don't know what does that. I don't know how they know that, but I want to say that they're more aware than us in that fashion. The feral sense, I guess, if you want to say.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think the problem is that the whole anthropomorphic thing and everything revolves around humans, blah, blah. It's just all silliness. Like we've got all these beautiful animals around us, all this nature, things that we don't even understand that's going on planet with trees and plants and, all the networks, the spore networks, everything. And, do you think just because we're on the top of the food chain that we're consciously sort of better than everybody else? But just no.
I'm glad you brought that up about plants and stuff. Now, I want to say scientific studies have proven that plants that are around music grow better. And, I play a lot of music and my plants grow really good. Is there, and this is probably a difficult question because I really don't even know what to expect for an answer. Could you say that a plant or a tree or something has the consciousness?
Haven't you seen the Japanese studies where they are working with water? Have you seen those studies at all?
I don't. Doesn't sound familiar to me now.
And
working
really,
with water.
I want you to Google it, where they talk badly to water and then they freeze the water. And that one. It's the same. What are you, 60% water or whatever, even probably higher volume. The moon shifts the oceans, backwards and forwards. Where it gets shifted as well. Everything is not what it seems. Everything's an illusion.
You know what that reminds me of, and it's probably not directly related, but if you vibrate water at a certain, above a perfectly flat level surface, it creates patterns. Now, these very same patterns are found in nature. And I do remember the studies about water and talking to it and how when you freeze it, it depending on whether you're mad at it or not, it freezes in a certain crystalline structure. I do remember that. Yes.
There you go.
That's
just one thing. I see somebody else got a question there for a second. How is a guided meditation connecting with ETs different than astral projection? There is no comparison. For a start, a guided meditation isn't generally going to connect you with real extraterrestrials anyway. That's probably like people are going, oh, no, I didn't want to hear that. I would suggest that the imagery that the mind creates is so powerful that you'd have problems evidencing that contact. That's the first thing. Guided meditations are good at guiding the consciousness and the imagination processes. Whereas if you ask a person that's being abducted about contacting ETs, they may have a totally different experience of what a person would that was doing a guided meditation. And then, of course, astral projection stands in its own right as being a process for separation from the physical form and moving into different spaces, whether they be real-time space or dimensional spaces or whatever. So they're really, they're all different in some respects as well. Yeah.
I have delved in this stuff, and I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off? I have delved in this stuff in the past, and I no longer do it and stuff. Now I've tried the remote viewing stuff, which I will say, I can, the imagination is very, very powerful. And if you can imagine yourself in the place that you're targeting, let's say, for instance, you can almost literally see it. And now, is that my imagination doing that? Maybe. But the thing is I haven't had very good luck because bad things have happened as a result of that. Now, could that possibly be from inexperience, rather? That I'm just kind of blasting all over the place, kind of in the general area, but not really, fine-tuned targeting, something.
Yeah. Remote viewing is a specific skill, and I do remote viewing, and I think that there's a whole construct around remote viewing, and it's very scientific and it's evidence-based. That's the first thing. I don't know those processes. I do a different one. I would suggest that remote viewing, from my own experience, has the potential to also get people into trouble. Sometimes you shouldn't be viewing things that you're seeing. And you can, by the fact that you're actually viewing them, you notify the entities that you're viewing that you're actually observing them. And so I think it's, to me, remote viewing is something that people should be very careful about doing. I'm being very vague with what I'm saying, but that's
I hear what you're saying, though, and I, still today, I don't know that I believe that 100% that I actually viewed this, but even then, I couldn't pick out what a street sign said. I could kind of see the place, and maybe I was just imagining it and picturing it in my mind and just creating my own little temporary reality, which could have a splatter effect, I guess, if considering what you said there, but I don't do that stuff no more. I've done the crystal stuff, I've done the remote viewing, I've done all this kind of the self-meditation, which actually I think the self-meditation is very good for people if they really can get into it. It really totally, physically makes you feel better. Relaxed and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
So, I'm still a skeptic, but I no longer believe that stuff because I've been poisoned with so much obviously fake information that now I don't believe in that stuff no more. I'm sorry for yelling.
Well, I think that's a really good place to be. I think that it's you've worked out what all the BS is, and now you can start the evidence.
Mm-hmm. True.
Okay, Lynn, thank you so much for having me on here. Paul and Cyan, thank you so much for answering my questions, even if they weren't, perfect. Doug, your turn, buddy. Okay, I'm gonna leave you guys here right now. I have things I have to do. I'll be listening in though. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. All right. Well, Doug, I don't know if you have any questions, but it's been nice having you here.
Remembering a time when I used to work at the Del Monte factory in my hometown, in the summertime when I was coming home after a night shift, 4 o'clock in the morning. And how they always say when you are starting to do like an out-of-body experience or something, if you're meditating or that you hear a buzzing sound. I was, I chalked it up to me being half asleep when I'm driving home, but I did hear a buzzing sound as I'm kind of being hypnotized by the driving on the road, late at night. And I heard heard the buzzing, and then suddenly, I had snapped out of it because I damn near ran over a piece of wood that was laying in the middle of the road. And for the life of me, I don't think I could ever recreate that situation to try and, do out of body experiences. It's something that I'd like to experiment with once, but I just doesn't quite work that way in my case.
Well,
anyway.
Doug, maybe I wrote a study guide on astral traveling. Maybe you need to read something like that to get some basic fundamentals in order, so that you can actually work at doing astral traveling from a more constructed approach, maybe.
Mm. Yeah, I'm not. I have one book really that I was given to by the author, for astral or out of body experiences, and that I don't know. I guess I just have to knuckle down one of these times and see if it works.
Yeah, but the trick is don't try too hard.
Yeah.
Astraling's all about being an observer of yourself, and also being in a highly relaxed state while you are consciously aware.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be that kind of situation when I was driving home after work, but I know there's enough spiritual activity that's happened around in this area. I'd like to, possibly step into it and see, how what you can't normally see. Yeah. But,
big difference between the astral realm and spirits. A lot of spirits are nowhere near the astral realm. So
interesting.
Yeah.
That sounds like a whole show in and of itself. Yeah. Finding out what's in the astral realm.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. There's so much to learn,
Yeah.
When you've been doing this for 50 years or whatever, you can't just talk about it all in 1 minute. It's there's a lot to know.
Well, besides my first wife's being able to drop little hints around me to let me know when she's around, and my current wife now who's a little bit more sensitive to these things and has seen a spirit or two, and including my first wife in the house that we're living in now. Plus I've spotted a triangular shaped craft, hovering over my military base when I was still in the military. Somebody's trying to make me aware, that there's more than just, the usual things, that happen in the world. There's other things. And it certainly has my interest,
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. Well, we are at 2 hours, guys. I can't believe that it's gone by so quickly. I'm so excited that everybody has come on today, which is amazing. So excited, Doug, that you joined us. Thank you so much. Even if it was by accident, it's awesome to have you on here with us.
Oh, thank you.
Love it. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I don't see any more questions. So I think maybe we'll call it a day for today. I know you guys are probably getting pooped. You always have lots of energy over there. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thanks for all of the wonderful questions. We will be back here again next week. We have Paul and Cyan on every single week. So hopefully the calls will keep coming in. The questions will keep coming in. We've got some really good ones today. So I think it's fantastic. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. It's been awesome.
That's okay. And we'll see everybody next week.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Doug. Bye. All right. And thank you all in the audience as well. It has been amazing having you here as always. Thank you for your questions and contributions. And don't forget that if you want to find out what podcasts are on for the day, come join me right here on this channel, Rebellious Ufology, at 8 a.m. for the morning show, where I'm going to give you the daily podcast lineup, tell you what shows are on, what times they're on, what they're going to be talking about. And then, like I said, Paul and Cyan will be right back here next week on Wednesday. We will figure out the time. We'll figure out the time and let you know. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. And I will see you all tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.